Welcome to the news summary for day 378 of the war in Ukraine. Thank you for tuning in. You are listening to The Account. Today I have two articles I want to point out. Also, there has been a lot of news updates, however nothing that could be grouped into its own segment. All updates are grouped into the usual situation inside Ukraine, with a quick update on the executed soldier's identity and the UN Secretary-General's visit to Kyiv, the occupied territories, Russia and Belarus, including a report that Iran has provided ammunition to Russia, and the international developments, with updates on the Nord Stream sabotage and reactions to the POW execution. But before we start the news, the flashpoints along the front. Kreminna and surroundings. The situation for Russian forces in the Kreminna area seems to be deteriorating. No significant progress has been reported from this area, however, Russia has suffered heavy losses. According to the spokesman of the Eastern Group of Forces, Serhiy Cherevati, Ukraine destroyed 5 modern T-90 tanks in the larger area. Bakhmut. There has been no significant changes to report here. According to the NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg, Bakhmut could potentially fall in the coming days. Avdiivka. Russian sources claim that Vesele has been captured, however so far no evidence has been provided. Maiorsk. During the recording of this video, breaking news out of Maiorsk were announced. The Ukrainian military conducted a successful assault operation against the Russian invaders. The battle took place in the village of Maiorsk, which is located in the Donetsk Oblast. As today is International Women's Day, there have been several articles published discussing the strength and sacrifice of Ukrainian women during the war. The first article I want to highlight is titled, "She was a warrior of light. Stories of Ukrainian women killed at war." This article tells the story of several Ukrainian women who lost their lives fighting for their country and their people. Whether they were soldiers, volunteers, or simply delivered aid to those in need, these women made the ultimate sacrifice. I found the article very moving and would like you to check it out, please. The second article is titled, "The 57-year-old teacher who fearlessly resisted Russian occupation of Kherson," and tells the story of kindergarten teacher Olena Naumova, who has resisted the Russian occupation during the 8 months of occupation. She was arrested, brought to a torture chamber, interrogated multiple times, but never broke. After her release, she went underground as she knew the occupiers would not leave an outspoken pro-Ukrainian activist alone for long. Not even her family knew where she was. This is her story. Please give it a read. To start the news segment, a look at all the minor updates out of Ukraine. The identity of the executed soldier has been re-established by the North Regional Department of the Territorial Defense Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. According to the data, the soldier is Alexander Matsievsky, a Ukrainian serviceman from the Chernihiv region Nishin. As a reminder, yesterday on March 7, 2023, the ground forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reported that the Ukrainian soldier executed by Russians was Timofey Shadura, a serviceman from the 30th Separate Mechanized Brigade. Valery Zaluzhnyi, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, has thanked the Ukrainian women for their dedication to their country on today's International Women's Day. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has arrived in Ukraine and met with President Zelensky. The meeting will focus on how to restore peace and international security. The supply of 1 million artillery shells required for the counter-offensive and air defense systems to Ukraine will be the main topic at a meeting of EU defense ministers in Stockholm. After the Cabinet of Ministers approved the relevant procedures, it was decided to forcibly evacuate all children from Bakhmut to safer areas in Ukraine. A lot of misinformation, conspiracy theories, and justifications regarding the execution of a Ukrainian POW by Russian soldiers have been shared over the past days. This article takes a look at the main versions. Next up, the latest regarding the situation in the occupied territories. According to the Luhansk Oblast military administration, it is reported that Russian forces have begun using modular hospitals, as normal hospitals are overcrowded with wounded soldiers. Russia also solved the shortage of medical workers by sending medical teams from various regions of the Russian Federation to Luhansk Oblast. A massive fire broke out in occupied Enerhodar, Zaporizhia Oblast. The Russian Guard and the military were involved in extinguishing it. While Russia accused Ukrainian forces of using drones with incendiary ammunition, Ukrainian sources reported that Ukrainian forces attacked enemy equipment. In the occupied city of Berdiansk, Russian invaders have conducted searches at homes of families who refused to send their children to Russian schools, threatening them with fines and the possibility of having their children taken away. According to Petro Andriyushchenko, an advisor to the Mariupol mayor, Russian units have started to use a new marking on their equipment. Moving on to the news updates from Russia and Belarus. According to a source in the secret services, Iran has secretly supplied large quantities of bullets, rockets, and mortar bombs to Russia for the war in Ukraine and plans to send more. The source claims that 2 Russian-flagged cargo ships headed to Russia via the Caspian Sea. They left an Iranian port in January. The alleged cargo consisted of approximately 100 million rounds of ammunition of various calibers for use in weapons such as pistols, assault rifles, and machine guns. According to the source, the ships were also carrying a range of other ammunition, including approximately 300,000 shells, such as 40mm grenades for grenade launchers, 107mm anti-tank rockets, mortar bombs of various calibers, rockets for MLRS, and armor penetration shells. Natalia Humenyuk, head of the Southern Defense Forces Joint Press Center, reported today that Russia does not have any missile carriers on combat duty in the Black Sea. Western officials have stated that the Wagner PMC appears to be losing the support of the Russian armed forces. And to wrap up the news segment, the international developments. The New York Times published an article yesterday claiming that Western officials suspect a pro-Ukrainian group is responsible for the Nord Stream sabotage. Meanwhile, it was reported that Germany has allegedly searched a boat in January which is suspected of carrying explosives used in the Nord Stream sabotage. Oleksiy Reznikov, Defense Minister of Ukraine, categorically denied any Ukrainian involvement in the Nord Stream sabotage. Ned Price, U.S. State Department spokesperson, said during a press briefing that the State Department was aware of the gruesome video of the execution of an unarmed Ukrainian soldier, allegedly in Russian captivity. Price condemned the Russian soldiers who carried out the execution. At the same time, a spokesperson for the UN Office for Human Rights stated that the video recording is most likely real and not a fake. President Zelensky has invited U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy to visit Ukraine, but he declined the invitation, saying that he did not need the trip to make decisions on aid to Kyiv. The U.S. military is currently studying whether it is possible to integrate advanced Western air-to-air missiles with Ukraine's Soviet-era fighter jets. The German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius confirmed today that Ukraine will receive 18 Leopard 2 A6 tanks from Germany and 3 from Portugal by the end of March. The armed forces of Ukraine have received another 2 Gepard self-propelled guns and other defense assistance from Germany. Russia could shift to a strategy of holding and defending existing positions as it lacks the ammunition and troops to make significant territorial gains in Ukraine in 2023, Avril Haines, the director of the US National Intelligence, has stated. And now for the intelligence report segment, starting with the UK Ministry of Defence. On March 4, 2023, the Russian Ministry of Defense released a video of a rare visit to Ukraine by Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu. There is a realistic possibility that this was partially in response to recent footage of the owner of Wagner Group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, visiting his fighters on the front line. Wagner is in a high-profile dispute with the Russian Ministry of Defense, and Shoigu is likely sensitive to being compared to Prigozhin. The only deployed Russian field commander shown in the video was Colonel General Rustam Muradov. It is notable that Muradov is responsible for the Volodar sector of Donetsk Oblast, where several assaults have failed in the last 3 months. Until recently, the Russian command likely saw a breakthrough at Volodar as a key way to achieve an operationally significant breakthrough in Ukraine's lines. Russian planners are likely facing the dilemma of attempting another Volodar assault or supporting intense fighting further north near Bakhmut and Kreminna. A look at the latest assessment by the Institute for the Study of War. The institute assessed that Russian forces may be missing the mechanized forces necessary to advance beyond Bakhmut, adding that the tactical assault detachments used in assaults against Bakhmut are likely unable to conduct maneuver warfare. The American think tank noted that mounting casualties among Russian troops, as well as the devolution of Russian force structure towards small assault detachments, may hinder the advance of Russian forces should they capture Bakhmut. President Zelensky stated on March 7th that the hypothetical Russian capture of Bakhmut would provide Russian forces with an open road to Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, and other critical settlements in Donetsk Oblast. However, the researchers continue to assess that Russian forces lack the capability to exploit the tactical capture of Bakhmut to generate operational effects and will likely rapidly culminate following the capture of Bakhmut. Russian forces could attempt to push towards Kostiantynivka, about 20 kilometers from Bakhmut, or could push northwest along the E40 highway towards the Sloviansk-Kramatorsk area in northeastern Donetsk Oblast, about 40 kilometers of Bakhmut. The institute suggests degraded Russian forces would likely have to prioritize the pursuit of just one to have any chance of success, though Russian commanders have repeatedly stretched their forces too thin across multiple axes of advance throughout the invasion of Ukraine. It was noted that Ukrainian forces have also heavily fortified both of these routes, which are supplied by numerous ground lines of communication running deep into the Ukrainian rear, and any Russian attempt to advance down those roads would likely be highly costly. And to wrap up the report, the evening update by the General Staff of Ukraine. The Russian Federation does not give up its intentions regarding the occupation of Ukraine and continues to conduct full-scale armed aggression. The main efforts are concentrated on the conduct of offensive actions in the Kupiansk, Liman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and Shakhtarsk directions. In the Kupiansk and Liman directions, the enemy continues to try to break through the defenses of our troops. The enemy led unsuccessful offensive actions in the directions of Khyanikivka, Spirne, and Bilohorivka. The enemy continues to advance in the direction of Bakhmut. The enemy does not stop the assault on the city of Bakhmut. Our defenders repelled attacks in the districts of Orikhovo-Vasilivka, Dubovo-Vasilivka, Bakhmut, and Ivanivske. In the Avdiivka and Shakhtarsk directions, the enemy carried out unsuccessful offensive actions in the direction of the settlements of Kamyanka, Severne, Pervomaiske, Nevelske, and Novomikhailivka of the Donetsk Oblast. In the Zaporizhia and Kherson directions, the enemy is conducting defensive operations. In the settlement of Kreminna, Luhansk Oblast, a sharp increase in cases of eviction of local residents from their own private houses by representatives of the local occupying so-called authority, with the support of the invading military personnel for additional accommodation of newly arrived representatives of the Russian armed forces, is recorded. There is a sharp increase in the level of dissatisfaction with the action of the leadership among those mobilized for the armed forces of the Russian Federation. The main reason for dissatisfaction is the increase in the number of cases of the use of those occupiers who were previously trained to serve in support units and do not have combat experience as assault units. This leads to a sharp increase in the number of casualties, and the rearguards do not agree to die. And with that, today's report is finished. If you're interested in reading up on any of the articles I mentioned, you can find links to them in the description as usual. If you enjoyed the report and found it informative, please consider sharing it with others and giving me a like. I hope you will join me again tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in and have a great day. You were listening to The Account. Slava Ukraini.